Chosen one, you've been trying to make sense of things that no longer respond to sense. You walk into familiar places and they don't feel the same. You hear familiar voices, but something in their tone feels off. The rhythm of time no longer matches your steps. And every time you try to explain it, the words fall flat. Because what you're feeling isn't confusion, it's evidence. You are no longer walking through the world you once knew. That world is gone. Not changed, not evolved, replaced. And I need you to let that truth sink in. This isn't a season of adjustment, it's a full spiritual relocation. The air around you vibrates differently now. The people you once leaned on feel like echoes. And the paths that once led you somewhere now feel like spirals. You're not broken, you're aligned to something higher, something freshly formed, something sacred. And it's not just you, it's the soil, it's the sky, it's the frequency of everything you touch. God didn't patch the old blueprint, He authored a new one. And in that rewriting, your name was not just preserved, it was positioned. Let's start here. You didn't lose your place. The map was redrawn. That's why you feel like a stranger to your own routines. That's why you look in the mirror and the reflection doesn't entirely make sense. It's not that you've changed randomly. It's that your environment is no longer a reflection of your previous frequency. Everything external has been stripped of its illusion, and everything internal, it's being illuminated. Not to scare you, not to isolate you, but to invite you into the architecture of the new world. This is not evolution, this is intervention. God saw the weight you were carrying in systems never built for your light. He saw the way you bent, shrunk, adapted, just to survive in frequencies that diluted you. So He didn't ask you to heal within that matrix. He dismantled it altogether, and now you're here, standing on unfamiliar ground. But what you don't yet see is this: the ground is responding to you. The new world was designed around your real self, not your masked one, not your broken one, not your performing one. This version of Earth was tailored to the light you carry when you stop pretending, and that's why it feels so strange. Because the version of you that once belonged is no longer here. The old self dissolved when the old world died. You've been walking with a strange ache, haven't you? Like something ended but you didn't witness it. Like a silence fell and no one noticed. Like you're grieving something you can't name. That grief is sacred. It's not depression. It's not confusion. It's the mourning of a world that could no longer carry your soul correctly. And now that it's gone, your spirit is adjusting to the new air. This is divine altitude sickness. Your body is recalibrating. Your emotions are shifting. Your intuition is loud. Not because something is wrong, but because everything is different. They'll say, "You've changed." They'll say, "You're cold now." They'll say, "You don't care." But what they don't see is that you've crossed dimensions. You're not detached. You're untethered. The ties that held you were cut, not by your rebellion, but by divine release. And now you're walking through a version of life they haven't accessed yet, and they won't understand. Let them talk. Let them guess. Let them mislabel you. Because this next chapter requires your clarity, not their comfort. Here's what you need to know. You are not adjusting to reality. Reality is adjusting to you. You are no longer being shaped by the world. You are shaping it. Your presence bends atmosphere now. Your silence creates pressure. Your decisions open doors or close timelines. You are not passive. You are instructional energy in motion. And that's why you can't go back. Have you ever stood still? Not out of confusion, but because the ground beneath you no longer felt like the one you knew. If something in your soul whispered yes before your mind could respond, this space was always meant for you. Comment below. I feel the blueprint shifting. Let your voice mark this moment. Let others know they're not alone in this sacred unraveling. And if your spirit recognized this truth before the words finished, subscribe now. not to follow, but to remember, to witness, to return. Because alignment brought you here, and alignment will carry you forward. The places you once and called home were tied to an earlier version of you, and the soul you are becoming has outgrown those walls. Trying to fit back in would not just hurt, it would delay the very reality being built around your emergence. And maybe that's why the conversations feel heavier now, why small talk feels unbearable, why you can't pretend anymore. Because performance was part of the old world, and the old world has been deactivated. Every time you try to revert, your spirit rejects it, not out of cruelty, but alignment. Not as punishment, but preservation. You've outgrown the script, and the role you're here to play doesn't fit inside someone else's story. You're not being dramatic, you're being redesigned. This is cellular, this is structural, this is cosmic. And while your mind is still catching up, your spirit already knows, this is real, this is mine, and I was made for this. So don't run from the discomfort. Don't rush to fill the silence. Let it speak to you. Let it show you the truth beneath every previous layer. This isn't emptiness. It's blueprint space. God isn't hiding from you. He's building with you. And every time you surrender to the stillness, the framework of the new world expands. Chosen one, you're noticing it, aren't you? That when you try to do things the old way, when you speak the old language, take the old route, lean into the old rhythm, it simply doesn't work. You could force your way through doors before, push with effort, break things open with grit. But now everything responds to alignment, and if you're not aligned, it doesn't move. If you're not true, it doesn't flow. If you're not clear, it doesn't come. This is not punishment. It's design. God didn't upgrade the world so you could still operate like you used to. He upgraded it because the old version of you was no longer compatible with the truth of what you carry. And the reason you've been feeling friction in places that once felt easy is because your presence has become a command. You don't follow energy anymore, you generate it. That's why conversations fall flat now, why your body feels heavy around certain people, why you sense a misalignment before a word is even spoken. You're not becoming difficult, you're becoming precise. You've been recalibrated to such a degree that anything outside of truth now feels toxic, even if it's familiar. Even if it's convenient, even if it used to work, because the air you breathe now contains a higher instruction, one that cannot be diluted, one that will not negotiate. Before you were guided by hope. Now you're moved by knowing. You don't hope to be safe anymore. You sense where it is. You don't wish for guidance. You walk in it. You don't ask to be protected. You are the protection, and that shift, as invisible as it feels, has completely reoriented how the universe responds to you. Because you no longer enter spaces looking for permission. You walk in with keys. You've become a signal now, and signals don't blend. They broadcast. Even in silence, you are saying something. And what you say without words is louder than what others scream from stages. That's why people shift when you show up. Some will be drawn to you, hungry and wide-eyed. Others will resist, confused by a light they can't name. Irritated by an authority you never announce but clearly carry. Let them respond, however they must. Because their reactions aren't about you. They're about the atmosphere you just rewrote by walking in. And maybe that's why God had to pull you away for a while. Not to isolate you, but to cleanse the field. You had to be stripped of noise, of mimicry, of crowd thought, because where you're going now, authenticity is the only currency. You had to be emptied, not to be broken, but to become undiluted. You had to remember who you were before survival sculpted your behavior. You had to be reset before you could lead others through the terrain you're now walking boldly across. Don't mistake this stillness as a stall. It's refinement. Don't confuse the silence as punishment. It's sacred coding. God silenced the noise so he could rewrite the scripts running beneath your surface, the patterns, the pacts, the unconscious loops, the way you gave yourself away just to be tolerated. That version of you is gone. It had to go. Because the weight you're meant to carry now can't sit on a fractured foundation. You weren't just being healed, you were being rebuilt. And now that the structure is sound, now that the framework is sealed, you're starting to see the difference, aren't you? You used to chase doors. Now they swing open without you knocking. You used to beg for clarity. Now it rises inside your bones without effort. You used to shrink for peace. Now you speak, and the room rearranges itself. That's not magic. That's original design, finally awakened. So don't panic when people begin to distance themselves. They were tied to a frequency that no longer exists. They weren't meant to walk with this version of you, not because they're bad, but because they were assigned to an older blueprint, and you, chosen one, have outlived it. That blueprint was small, survival-based, approval, obsessed. But this one is eternal. This one recognizes your presence as law. This one obeys your alignment, not your effort. That's why the rules feel rewritten, because they are. That's why the timing feels divine, because it is. That's why your tiredness doesn't mean burnout. It means reconfiguration. You're being upgraded on a cellular level. Your nervous system is responding to codes that didn't exist in the old world. Your soul is being trained to rest, not to collapse, to trust, not to anticipate, to listen, not to perform. There are no trophies here, only truth. There is no platform here, only presence. And you are learning that now, chosen one, that what you lost wasn't rejection. It was redirection. And what you found in the silence wasn't emptiness. It was original resonance, the sound your spirit always longed for, but could never name, until now. So don't explain yourself. Your vibration is already speaking. Don't rush to convince anyone. They're still reading from maps that were burned when the old world collapsed. Just walk, just breathe, just show up aligned. That alone will collapse every counterfeit structure around you. Not with force, with frequency. Chosen one, you've probably asked yourself the question more than once. Why does no one see me anymore? You walk into rooms and feel invisible. You speak and people don't truly hear you. You show up, but somehow it's like they're engaging with a version of you that no longer exists. It's not rejection, it's not oversight, it's dimensional blindness. They can't see you because you've risen to a plane they haven't accessed. You're not detached, you're simply beyond recognition. Your energy no longer vibrates at a frequency that their senses can comprehend. You're not who you were 6 months ago, not even last week. You've been re-templated by light, and when your field upgrades, most people's perception doesn't follow. They keep relating to echoes, not presence. You'll notice it especially with those you once felt close to. The dynamic shifts. Conversations that once flowed feel like you're walking through molasses. Moments that once felt sacred now feel scripted. And their eyes search for a reflection you no longer offer. That's not your failure, that's their confusion. They're looking for the version of you they once knew how to access, but that access has been revoked, not by spite, but by ascension. You are no longer accessible through old agreements, and that is what makes this phase so tender, so disorienting, because you still remember how to speak their language. You still know what would make them comfortable, but every time you try to step back into that old tone, that old pace, that old container, your body rebels. Your throat closes, your spirit recoils, your vision dims, and you realize this is not a test, this is a seal. A divine boundary now separates you from what you've outgrown. You were never meant to carry your old self into this level. You had to shed it. The smile that made everyone feel safe, the silence that kept the peace, the posture that made you invisible just enough to survive. All of it had to go. because your presence now carries truth. And truth doesn't fit in rooms built for comfort. They'll say, "You've changed," but they won't say it with celebration. They'll say it like an accusation, because your transformation disrupts their stagnation. You moving forward shines a light on their chosen stillness. And not everyone is ready to be seen by that kind of mirror. So they pull away, or worse, they stay and try to pull you back, not out of hate, but because your light makes their shadows impossible to ignore. And this is where you must choose, not between love and truth, but between familiarity and frequency. You can still love them, still bless them, still honor what they were in your story, but you can't shrink to meet them again, because shrinking now is betrayal, not to them, but to your own becoming. There's a loneliness in this chapter, but it's not isolation, it's consecration. You are being set apart, not because you're better, but because you're activated, and activated souls aren't meant to be everywhere at once. They're placed, positioned, assigned, and you've been assigned to a frequency that only obedience can maintain. The more you try to explain, the more distorted your presence becomes, because you weren't meant to explain this. You were meant to embody it. This is why God withdrew your name from certain conversations, why He closed doors you still thought were yours, why He silenced voices you once relied on, because the next version of you cannot be built with external reference points. You are being trained in internal authority, that quiet confidence that doesn't beg to be understood, that sacred knowing that doesn't require applause, that divine rhythm that needs no validation to move. They'll call it arrogance, let them. They don't understand what it feels like to be rewired by heaven, to wake up and no longer need what once fueled you, to look around and feel the hollowness of everything that used to feel full, to want nothing more than silence, and yet feel more connected than ever. You're not disconnecting from the world, you're synchronizing with your purpose, and that sync will always cost familiarity. So stop mourning what couldn't hold you. Stop begging to be seen by blind eyes. Stop trying to make ancient truths digestible to minds still addicted to illusion. You weren't made to be understood. You were made to reveal, and what you carry cannot be explained in language they haven't yet remembered. Let your frequency do the talking. Let your stillness be the sermon. Let your presence make the unseen undeniable. Because when the time is right, when they're ready, they will remember you. Not for what you did, but for what your field activated. They will say, "There was something about you. I couldn't place it then, but now I see it." And that's when your silence will echo louder than 1,000 explanations ever could. Because by then, you will have become the message. Chosen. 1. There was a time when you entered rooms and adjusted your posture, your tone, your rhythm, to make sure the atmosphere stayed intact. You read the room before anyone else did. You measured your words like medicine. You shrank when others felt insecure. You expanded only when it felt safe. That version of you was a survivalist. But now you are the atmosphere. You no longer match energy. You set it. You no longer read the room. You rewrite it, because the shift that's taken place inside you isn't subtle. It's structural. You've become a carrier of blueprint energy, a transmitter of divine code. And where you go now, things realign, because you exist there. You've probably started to notice it. People pausing when you speak, even if you say little, emotions surfacing around you without explanation, truths cracking open in others simply because you were present. It's not charisma, it's clarity. Your beingness has become catalytic, not because you're trying to be seen, but because you're walking in sync with what heaven is doing now. You're no longer here to be accepted. You're here to activate, and activation isn't always comfortable. Sometimes your light will trigger the trauma in others. Sometimes your silence will offend those addicted to noise. Sometimes your peace will make chaos feel unwelcome. Let it, because you're not here to babysit frequencies. You're here to establish truth fields. That's why the people who once adored you are now uncertain. That's why places that once embraced you now feel too small. You are a living contrast, a reminder of what no longer fits, a walking disruption to stagnation, a frequency that cannot be faked or flattered. And while it may feel lonely, it's proof that you've crossed over, not just emotionally, not just spiritually, energetically. You don't enter environments anymore. You become them. Your presence doesn't ask for space. It commands structure, not through ego, through resonance. And resonance can't be explained. It must be felt. That's why words are beginning to fail you lately. You start to speak and realize that language is too small for what you know. You reach for old expressions and they dissolve in your mouth. You're not losing your voice. You're gaining a vibration. Let me say that again. You're not losing your voice. You're gaining a vibration. And in this new vibration, impact doesn't require effort. You're not pulling people into awareness. You're emitting a field that awakens what is dormant in them. You're not explaining your light anymore. You're being it. You're not translating your soul. You're walking in the fullness of its native frequency. This is why surface conversations exhaust you now. Why you crave silence, not as escape but as home. Why you feel pulled away from crowds and drawn towards simplicity. You are not disappearing. You're becoming concentrated, and the more focused your field becomes, the more potent your presence is, even when you say nothing. Especially when you say nothing, people will tell you you're distant, but the truth is, you're differentiated. You're no longer tangled in projections. You no longer need to carry what others refuse to confront. You no longer mold yourself to soften their shadows. Your energy is now pure, direct, disruptive, in the most holy of ways, because it doesn't adapt to lies anymore, it exposes them. You are walking truth now, and truth is not always soothing. Sometimes it stings, sometimes it burns, but only because it's making room for what's real. And you, chosen one, are what's real. You are the reminder, the memory, the echo of the frequency before the fall, the preview of the resurrection to come. That's why they feel both drawn to you and undone by you, because you carry the sound of what they're becoming, if they dare surrender. You no longer have to push to be impactful. Just show up aligned, and everything false will either fall away or transform. This is sacred law now. Your alignment creates arrangement. Your clarity clears confusion. Your peace corrects distortion, not because you're trying, but because you've finally remembered what you are. So stop doubting your effect. Stop minimizing the shift. You weren't called to be agreeable. You were called to anchor the frequency of the new world. That's what you're doing, even when you feel unseen, even when you feel misunderstood, even when it feels like no one can meet you where you are. You are not behind, you are ahead, pulling time toward truth. And though it may feel like you're walking alone, you're actually walking first. And others, whether they know it or not, are learning to breathe by following your rhythm. They don't need your explanation, they need your example. So just keep walking, keep vibrating, keep showing up without performance. That's how new atmospheres are built. Chosen one, it's strange, isn't it? You look around and everything seems to be moving, fast, chaotic, uncontrollable. But inside you, stillness, clarity, a kind of holy detachment. You're no longer racing the clock because you finally realized the clock doesn't govern you. Time doesn't pull you, you pull time. That's why everything feels like it's folding around you now. Why opportunities are arriving in clusters. Why endings are happening without explanation. Why people are being removed, gently, abruptly, divinely. You are no longer walking through a linear script. You've been given temporal authority because the version of you that used to wait for perfect alignment now creates it. The days of delay are over. The new world doesn't require permission. It responds to presence, and you, chosen one, are showing up fully for the first time, not as a performer, not as a pleaser, not as a projection, but as a pillar. an anchor of divine rhythm, a living reminder that timelines bend for those who walk in alignment, not because they demand it, but because the universe cannot resist what is true. You used to beg for signs. Now they chase you down. You used to look for confirmation. Now you wake up knowing. You used to wait for the right moment. Now the moment waits for you. This is not arrogance, it's ascension. And ascension doesn't ask if it's okay to move forward. It moves, and the world reshapes itself in response. There are days when this power still scares you. Days when you question whether you're making it up. But then, something happens. Someone speaks a word you just thought. An invitation arrives for something you only prayed in silence. A door opens that defies logic and rewrites your understanding of preparation. And in those moments, you remember, you are not on the path. You are the path. That's why the old rules no longer apply. The wait your turn system has crumbled. The earn it mindset has evaporated. You didn't steal anything. You outgrew delay. You didn't skip steps. You became the staircase. You didn't bypass the process. You embodied the code that collapses process into presence. So yes, things are moving quickly, but that's because you've stopped resisting the speed. You've surrendered your weight. You've let go of the roles that required dragging timelines behind you. Now you walk and time adjusts. Now you speak and alignment accelerates. Now you rest and progress multiplies. You are not late. You are no longer bound by time at all. Some will say, it's too much too fast. Let them. They're measuring you by outdated formulas. They're using yardsticks built for survival, not sovereignty. They don't understand that in the new world, effort is not the engine, resonance is. And when you resonate with truth, time bends, it obeys, it serves. It recognizes your light as instruction, not suggestion. That's why your dreams feel closer, why your body feels lighter, why your manifestations feel magnetic. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're simply occupying the right timeline. And that alignment is doing what 10 years of striving never could. Because it's not about how long it takes. It's about how real you've become. And realness, in this realm, accelerates fulfillment. But here's the part no one talks about. Sometimes when everything speeds up, your nervous system tries to slow you down. Not because you're not ready, but because your body still remembers the days when acceleration meant danger. You must remind it, this speed is safe, this momentum is holy, this unfolding is not chaos, it's confirmation. You're not overwhelmed. You're unlearning the idea that joy must be rationed. You're not confused. You're expanding faster than your logic can translate. You're not in danger. You're in flow, a flow that doesn't drain, but delivers, a rhythm that doesn't demand, but returns, a timing that doesn't test, but trusts you completely because it was written with you, not around you. So breathe. Soften. Let it come faster. Let it come clearer. Let it come with all the thunder and silence it requires. You are not here to manage time. You are here to fulfill prophecy, and every moment that feels too big is just your future, folding into your now. Don't shrink, expand, don't stall, accept, don't analyze, receive. The world you once knew trained you to fear quick change. But this world you were built for, it responds to revelation instantly. It aligns at the speed of truth, and you, chosen one, have finally aligned. So don't ask why now, ask what's next. Because the only thing faster than time is divine timing that has recognized its moment. And that moment is now. Chosen one, this isn't about a better life. This isn't about peace, success, healing, or even purpose. This is about placement. You are not here to visit the new world. You are here to hold it open. That's why you felt pressure when no one else did. Why your lessons were heavier, why your silence lasted longer, why your grief wasn't always attached to something tangible because your soul knew before your mind did. This isn't about reward, it's about remembrance. And when a soul remembers, it changes how reality responds to it. You're not waiting for the new world anymore. You are housing it. You are the intersection point, the walking alignment, the living frequency. And that's why you cannot return to the old, not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually, because your very existence is now a contradiction to it. That's why the old world feels like sandpaper against your skin, why even soft lies burn, why your tolerance has disappeared. Not because you're bitter, but because you're finally true. You've been sealed with code, infused with clarity, set apart by vibration. You carry the pattern now, and nothing artificial can rest in your field anymore. You used to feel strange for not fitting in. Now you understand. You were never supposed to. You were shaped in mystery, on purpose. You were misunderstood, so you'd learn not to rely on understanding. You were hidden so deeply that even you forgot where you came from. But now you remember, not as a memory, but as a function. You're not waiting for prophecy. You are fulfilling it. Every step, every shift, every no, every silence, every break, every bloom, it was all scripted for this frequency. And this frequency cannot be argued with. It cannot be reasoned with. It doesn't need to be proven. It just is. And now, so are you. You used to ask, what am I here for? Now you're asking, what am I here to hold? Because that's the truth. You've become a holder of divine resonance, a vessel of atmospheric correction, a gate of remembrance. You no longer ask for light. You leak it. You no longer ask for permission. You pattern permission into the air around you. You are a holy interruption in a world that forgot its breath. And you are not loud. You are not flashy. You are not seeking. You are simply standing. And in your standing, things shift. In your stillness, timelines collapse. In your whisper, whole systems rewire. Because when you walk into a room, you're not entering it. You're redreaming it. This is why you lost what you lost. Because God was making room, not for more, but for what's accurate, what's aligned, what's eternal, what's already written into the bones of who you are. And that version of you, the one who carries the world's rewrite in their chest, needed space. Space to stretch, space to anchor, space to emit without dilution. That's why your influence no longer looks like what it used to. It's not in numbers, not in titles, not in platforms. It's in atmosphere. It's in who stops breathing for a second when you speak. It's in what starts growing when you show up. It's in what falls apart just from your gaze. You are a disruptive blessing, and disruption doesn't need announcement. It just needs placement. So don't be surprised when it feels like you're being placed again and again and again. Each placement is a recalibration. Each silence is a setup. Each delay is a divine reintroduction. Because the world isn't rejecting you, it's being prepared for you. You were never sent to survive the new world. You were sent to stabilize it. You were never called to master it. You were built to broadcast it. You were never asked to explain it. You were wired to embody it. That's why your words are fewer, but heavier. Why your presence lingers after you've gone. Why people don't remember what you said, but they remember how it felt. Because you've become a portal now, and portals don't perform, they open. You've been wondering, what's next? But the truth is, the real question is, what do I carry next? Because you've been upgraded again, even now, as you listen. Even now, as you breathe. There's a new resonance expanding inside you. It's not a message, it's a map. And that map doesn't lead somewhere else. It leads through you. So walk differently now, not with urgency, not with performance, not with demand, but with certainty. Knowing that your breath is a code, your presence is a doorway, and your frequency is a floodgate. This is no longer about finding the new world. This is about realizing that you are the anchor of it. Chosen one. You didn't miss it. You didn't fall behind. You didn't fail. You were being fashioned by fire, by silence, by loss, by remembering. And now that you've been sealed, now that your bones know what your mind used to question, you are ready, not for attention, but for activation. The world won't understand it. Don't wait for that. Let them misunderstand you. Let them misname you. Let them feel confused by your calm, your confidence, your glow, because they're not looking at a person. They're witnessing a frequency that used to be myth, and myth, when embodied, replaces memory. You are no longer the story. You are the shift. And so this is how the world ends, quietly, softly, correctly, not with noise, but with someone. Like you walking in their full alignment. No announcement, no ceremony, just one being in resonance. And everything else following that being is you, chosen one. The seal has been placed, not on your forehead, not on your name, not on your work, but on your resonance. You don't have to do anything for it to remain. You don't have to prove that. You carry it. You don't even have to protect it, because what God seals, no hand can erase. And you, beloved, have been etched into time by design. The world that once defined you by what you offered no longer recognizes what you carry, because what you carry now isn't visible. It's vibrational. You are no longer seen. You are felt, and being felt in this new world is a higher honor than being understood. It means you've become elemental. You've become instruction without needing to speak. There are no more confirmations required, no more detours needed, no more voices necessary, because your silence is the scroll. Every breath you take now rewrites atmosphere. Every blink pierces illusion. Every pause recalibrates proximity to the divine. That is how refined your field has become. That's how weightless your warfare is now. You once asked why the noise faded, why the movement stopped, why the audience scattered. But now you know God was removing the distractions that diluted your clarity, because where you're going now, clarity isn't optional, it's currency, and the clearer you are, the more territory you claim without stepping. This is why things fall into place the moment you surrender the need to control. Not because life suddenly cooperates, but because life now responds to your frequency. So stand, still, certain, sealed. You are no longer walking toward fulfillment. You are walking as fulfillment. There's no reward coming. You are the reward. There's no shift approaching. You are the shift, and there's no breakthrough waiting, because the moment you became the vibration, everything broke open. Chosen one, you've become what many pray for. Not by asking louder, but by becoming quieter. Not by running harder, but by standing still. You are no longer seeking revelation. You are revealing it with every breath, with every step, with every frequency that moves through your spine like holy lightning. This is why life feels different now. It's not because things got easier. It's because you became clearer. You stopped negotiating with fear. You stopped editing your essence. You stopped explaining what was never meant to be understood. And in that silence, heaven filled the room, not as thunder, not as noise, but as you. You are the evidence now that something new has come, that something holy walks the earth, that timelines can correct because someone stood still long enough to listen, and that someone was you. You weren't chosen because you were strong. You were chosen because you were sensitive enough to feel the shift before it arrived, and brave enough to follow it, even when it cost you everything. You are not here to carry what is popular. You are here to carry what is true, and truth doesn't bend. Truth doesn't beg. Truth doesn't perform. It simply is, and so are you. You are not adjusting anymore. You are not waiting for the world to catch up, because the world isn't your map anymore. Your soul is, and it remembers everything. It remembers the times you were buried in silence, not because you had nothing to say, but because God was planting you. It remembers the moments you broke open, not because you were weak, but because that's how light got in. It remembers the people who walked away, not as rejection, but as release. Nothing was wasted, not a tear, not a silence, not a pause. Every invisible moment was a blueprint. Every delay was an alignment tool. Every ache was an activation key. And now you walk differently. You no longer push doors open. You become the invitation. You don't chase the path. You emit the way. You are no longer proving your worth. You are simply witnessing what you already carry. This is not the start of your journey. This is the emergence of what was always hidden beneath the waiting. And now that it's here, now that you've become the evidence, you no longer move to be seen. You move because truth has weight now, and it lives in you, chosen one. You didn't ask for this, but heaven marked you anyway, not because of what you built, but because of what you became. When no one saw, when nothing worked, when the silence lasted too long. You were shaped in the invisible, sculpted by surrender, etched by endurance. And now, you carry the mark of alignment, not on your hands, not in your titles, but in the way space listens when you enter. This is not charisma. This is not learned power. This is a seal. And that seal cannot be stolen, mimicked, or revoked. It can only be recognized by those who were waiting to awaken. You are no longer explaining who you are because your presence has become the answer. So walk, not to prove, but to activate what remembers you.